Yeah, it looks like we just waiting. I seen some lawyers and stuff go in. It looks like somebody pulled up in a sprinter van. Everybody went, everything froze up, and then now we're back to this. So hopefully we are where we need to be so that we can get the get the verdict. I said he's gonna get 4 years. That's what I call. So I'm calling 4 years. So if you think he's gonna get more than four, drop a comment in the chat. But I think he only gonna get four. I don't think they're gonna max him out. Um, I hope not. I mean, they could, but I hope they don't max him out. I don't think he deserves the max. Um, but we gonna see because yeah, I'm waiting on the verdict. So I've been going to a few different so it's people out there. They waiting on the verdict. It's coming, guys. 4 years with time served. Um, I know he did say that he wanted to speak to the judge himself, so I know he's going to be speaking on his behalf today as well to the judge. So we'll see what happens with that. Hopefully that goes well for him. Maybe that'll break it down some, but just as much as he's been sending letters and you know trying to tell the judge he's learned his lesson. Um, Cassie and her team has been sending letters as well, saying that they're scared to death. Like, yeah, they don't want Diddy to come home. They said they scared. What is this? Thought I did this already, but okay. Getting text messages. What is this for? Mm-mm. Hmm. Mm-mm-mm. So yeah, but I think this is really a prime example of your past just catching up with you, honestly. Because I mean, Diddy did a lot of was doing a lot of shit way worse than what he did to Cassie, in my opinion. Like, I think Diddy definitely had something to do with Pac's murder. I think he had something to do with Biggie's murder. Um, you know, it's just it's just too coincidence that an individual is around two murders. You know what I'm saying? And ain't had nothing to do with neither one of the murders. Come on, man. I don't even know what's going on with this. Mm-mm-mm. Where we at? Oh, well, they keep changing the angles, so I guess we're in the right place. What if he ain't get no time? What if they just give him time served and let him come home? No, they not doing that. I mean, I'm just asking. Like, that'd be dope, right? Be back home with his family and stuff. What is what? Let's not do that. Let's go here. So I just did this, but I guess you gotta do it every year now. This is weird. So yeah, we just wait 10 on the verdict. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, nope. Not right now. So we'll just go with no. What time is it? 10:11. You know, of course, take forever.
You're on Newsroom Live with me. Dan Bowens is back in the station. And one of the questions that's just come up, we were talking about Judge Sumerian. You just step back just a little bit right there. You good, sir. Judge
Well, that's somebody else, so I don't want to watch his because that's me watching him commentate. That's not cool. Let's see. I don't really see any more live streams up.
Asking for 14 months, which is in essence time served. But I think what's really important is actually what the Department of Probation has recommended. Department of Probation has recommended 70 to 87 months. And I think a judge, similar to this judge who has a little experience with criminal law, has been on the bench for only a couple years,
Right.
I think he's going to tether himself a lot to the Department of Probation recommendation. I think that 70 to 87 months that the Department of Probation has recommended is really going to weigh heavily on this judge. And I would expect to see a sentence somewhere in that range. Maybe I've been predicting a little bit lower than that, but I think that's going to be a big consideration for the judge. In addition to the victim impact statements that the prosecutors have put forth and all of the family letters that Combs has put forth, including Combs' own letter, which was submitted yesterday evening, those are all the things that the judge has to weigh in considering the sentence here. But I think the Department of Probation recommendation is going to weigh heavily here.
when you have cases of this magnitude, and we're talking about that, and then again, the judge has only been on, I think, 2 years, a little more than that now. This will essentially also send a message about him. You know, he's new to the bench. How do you think that would go across, and how much pressure is it on him to make the right decision?
I mean, look, this is a very high-profile case. Everybody's watching. But I don't think he's thinking about that. I think he's thinking about what is just, what is the right decision based on the conviction in this case. And as we know, he was only convicted of 2 of the lesser counts, right? The 2 prostitution counts, the Mann Act violation counts. They each carry a maximum of 10 years independently, but it's almost unheard of to get that sentence for those convictions. So that's why I think it's going to come in much lower. As you may recall, the prosecutors initially over the summer when Diddy was convicted had asked for something much lower and then had raised their ask when they submitted their sentencing memo this week. So I think the judge has a lot to consider here. And I think, you know, he's got a lot on his plate here because there's a lot of factors at play. There's obviously a general deterrence, sending a message in a case of this magnitude so that the public and so that no one wants to commit, no one tries to commit a crime of similar characteristics and says, oh, well, if Sean Diddy Combs got sentenced to this, I'm going to be deterred from committing this crime as well.
His defense was trying to say, Combs' defense alluded to the fact that someone's personal actions and behavior, something they carry out in private, should not constitute, you know, jail time and convictions like that. If you were presiding, just hypothetically, how would you receive that message?
I mean, I think it's one of the many arguments. I think the hardest thing for the judge right now is considering the conduct that he heard at the trial for which Combs was acquitted. I think that's the biggest legal issue that the judge is going to be addressing today, right? Because there was obviously all of this evidence about violence and coercion that was presented during the trial. And the judge has to weigh all of that while also knowing that the United States Sentencing Commission has outlawed the use of acquitted conduct. Now, the prosecutor's argument here is that it's intertwined with the conduct that he was convicted of. The defense says, Judge, you shouldn't consider any of the acquitted conduct because he was simply convicted of 2 prostitution counts and none of the other violence and coercion or any of those other factors matter. And I'm really looking to see what the judge says about that conduct for which Combs was acquitted, because that'll also open another avenue for appeal for Combs if the judge relies on that acquitted conduct heavily. Because, like I said, the Sentencing Commission just last year changed the law on this and on whether or not courts can consider acquitted conduct.
Seth, in your opinion,
Well,
how damning, if you will, was the Cassie video from that hotel from 2016?
I understand.
Look, obviously it's a damning video. You know, we all watched it and were shocked and horrified watching it. But I think Combs' attorney did a great job minimizing the impact of it, because they admitted that he committed domestic violence. They admitted that he had assaulted her. And they said, look, he's done some terrible things in his life, but it doesn't mean he's guilty of a RICO conspiracy. It doesn't mean he's guilty of sex trafficking. So they own those facts. Again, we can't unsee it. The judge can't unsee it. He can't unhear the things that he heard during the trial. So it'll have some impact on the judge's sentence today.
Right.
And of course, RICO means racketeering, you know, basically organized crime or some sort of criminal empire engaging in unlawful activity.
Correct. And he was acquitted of that. That was the most serious count. It was always an aggressive count when the prosecutors brought that. I think a lot of us in the legal community were surprised that he was charged with that.
Well, a lot of you all thought it was a reach. It was a stretch.
It was a huge stretch. And obviously the jury agreed when they acquitted him of those of the 2 most serious counts, and they only convicted him of the Mann Act violations.
We know Gloria Allred is here. You know, she's got a presence, you know, and she's got an interest, you know, in, as far as, you know, representing, you know, people in similar matters like this. As far as Subramanian goes, and we know that it can go either way. This hearing could be over in minutes, or it could be over in, you know, it could take several hours, you know, like that.
I would be surprised if this took minutes, Anton. I would expect this to take hours. There's even some rumblings around the courthouse that this may not even complete today.
Wow.
So I would say multiple hours. I mean, I know the defense has asked for 4 lawyers to give presentations, and they've submitted a 15-minute video for the court to watch. I know that Cassie is here to speak. One of the other alleged victims, Mia, is going to be speaking. There was nothing on the docket about Jane, but Jane may ask to speak as well.
Exactly.
And the government's going to give a very lengthy presentation in addition to Diddy's lawyers. So I expect this to be a multiple-hour sentencing at a minimum.
Antoine,
Seth, stay right there
just
for
real-
1 second.
real
So,
quick,
Dan, as you just heard, Seth just.
as we have our
Yeah,
legal
go ahead, Dan.
expert there, we obviously are live, and we're also live on our YouTube channel. And so we have some questions from some of our viewers out
this is
there,
all
legal
one channel?
related. And so one of the questions in
Oh, he
particular
works for the channel.
is about the experience of this judge.
Okay.
A judge who may not have had a case as high profile as this one previously. Can you ask the attorney that we have there how much that may weigh into his decision about whether or not he sticks closer to the recommended sentencing from the probation department?
Got it. How much will Arun Subramanian's experience weigh in determining a factor? That's a question from one of our YouTube social media followers.
You know, it's an interesting question. Obviously, he doesn't have much experience in sentencing criminal cases, and this is obviously a unique case with the high-profile nature and the facts of the case. So the lack of experience, I'm sure, will, he'll err probably on the side of caution. But I'm sure he's spoken to his more experienced colleagues on the bench. They generally speak in chambers to one another. And in a case of this high profile, I'd be surprised if he didn't speak to some of his colleagues beforehand. But obviously, he hasn't sentenced anybody like Sean Diddy Combs before. And so that'll weigh some impact on whether or not he's willing to give him a lesser sentence, probably, and take a chance and giving Combs a second chance.
And then again, 70 months was the part of the parameters recommended by the Board of Probation, correct?
The Department of Probation gave a range of 70 to 87
Diddy was
months.
really an
So
Illuminati,
70 is a
and the
little
Illuminati
under
was
6
all that.
years.
Right.
87 is a
would be
little
home
under,
by now.
a little
Shit.
over 7 years.
He could have went
So
in
that's
there
a 6 to 7 year
The Rock
range.
or a gang
I
sign
think
or
the
something, and they
judge
would've been
may come
like,
in a little bit under that, but that's the
free
Department
to
of
go.
Probation's recommendation, and they're supposed to be a neutral third party who makes a recommendation to the court based on the facts, based on reviewing his history, and they make a recommendation to the court, and that's what they did in this case.
In the
Antoine, I
case,
know we're kind of going with the,
1 second. Yeah, go ahead, Danny.
we're sort of going with this team coverage here, where essentially I'm asking you a question and you're asking the attorney. We're sort of making this all work together here.
Is what it is.
It's just how we're having to do it this
It is
morning.
what it is.
So many of our viewers this morning are sort of weighing in and say, free Puffy. They're his fans. But how will the judge use a more of a general deterrence, in a sense, using Puffy's case as sending a message to the general public that this type of behavior is not tolerated, as opposed to maybe a more private citizen?
How much will the celebrity factor play into the sentencing, given the experience to this degree of Judge Subramanian?
You know, it's something that we're never going to be able to calculate. But obviously, he needs to send a message to the public, right? One of the factors the court is supposed to consider is general deterrence, deterring the public from committing a similar offense. So the high-profile nature of Combs shouldn't impact anything, but it's the high-profile nature of the case in sending a message to the public, this is the sentence you get if you commit these crimes. That's supposed to be what the judge takes into consideration.
Seth, hold on 1 second. Dan, hold on 1 second. I got a thought that's going to save both of us. I'm going to give Seth my other earbud. That's the one that I don't use, and that one goes in you fit it in. So you should be able to hear Dan as well. So Dan, you ask another question, because we both should be able to hear you now.
Okay, fantastic. You know, it's interesting.
Power
If he were
move,
to
bro.
get-
Power move.
Let's say he gets the 6 or the 7 years. You know, he sort of sticks to that judge's recommendation. Most likely, he'll get credit for the time he's already served. And then once he's in, because he's a first-time offender, maybe there's programs when it comes to drug rehabilitation and other things.
Man, this shit gonna be all
Will
day. I
that
thought
actually
this
play a
shit was gonna
factor?
be.
Will that be something that he could
Like they was
essentially
gonna
get out
sentence
earlier
his
than
ass
the
at
6 or
like
7 years?
10:30.